All right, so will I get 4.5 hours of streaming in tonight? That seems unlikely. Let's see. Drawing. No, let's get right into the demo. So, let me catch up on what works now. Here is the same old demo screen I've been looking at for maybe, I don't know, a week straight now. So let me just put this guy always on top. That should let me doodle about. Okay, so I got a Python prompt. This is inside my embedded Python instance. So what I finally got working is now I can say mcrfpy dot scene UI and give the name of a scene. In this case, UI test is the one that's on screen. And I'll get back a UI collection. That's iterable. So let me say collection equals that. Now, if I say collection 0, I'm going to get back a frame object, and that says it is at 100, 150, and 400 by 400, and has a color of red, check, and one child. So the red square is what I'm looking at, and the green square is the one child. So let's go ahead and move this. So if I say f equals that frame, I can say f.x equals 200, f.h equals 300, and f.fill color equals, let's change it orange, 128.255.0. And if I press Control D, we'll get a single frame. So that color seems a bit off. What did I do wrong? F.fill color equals 255.1280. Yeah, that looks better. So this right now is limited by only rendering a single frame before it gives me a interpreter, which is my way of being able to test the Python integration. But what that means is you can just write code like this, get the collection of UI objects for a given scene, and start creating them from scratch. So I can't do that yet. I can't append to a UI collection. That's a function call I haven't worked out yet. But I should be able to do stuff like f.f2 equals f.children 0. So we get that frame, and now I can move f2 x equals 100, or f3 equals f2's child. You can even do like plus equal 25. So you can see that the what I'm getting at is finally being gotten at, that I can finally write Python scripts and modify these objects, which are all just backed by the C++ engine. Great, so that's plenty of fun. That's working good. Now, you see that UI, the UI test scene has a caption on there. Well, presently, I have no way to convert a C++ caption into a Python object. And there's not even a sprite on the screen. I haven't loaded any textures, but I'm going to work on captions first, then text. And I'm still going to hope for at least the UI parts to be in my close to midnight submission for EngJam, which is basically going to be my UI overhaul. But yeah, learned a ton about Python integration doing this. So this is my UI caption stuff. I basically copied the entire UI frame implementation. So let's go through this, and at the end, what I would like to see is UI frame not anywhere in these any of these instantiations. So I think caption is the thing I need to copy paste. Just change in frame to caption, because a lot of these things are exactly the same. Like, let's see. We don't have a size, so it's got to go. But the text on a UI caption has caption, its data holds text, and we have a position, we have a outline, and what else we got? Set. What float members does it have? I also have notes in Obsidian. So that's get X, get Y, get outline. Did I even put that on there? Outline too. And get outline thickness. Done. Size, the character size. Do I want to somehow, let's see. I could do that because we have pi float from double. So let's actually do that. What did I define that as? So down here quite a bit. Okay, here's the getter setters. Caption, getter setters, XY, outline. Those are all floats. There's no width and height. Might be able to get those. I'm going to leave it commented out for now, but because the text has a width and a height, but you have to compute it by like the character widths and multiplying. And it's even more complicated if it's not a monospace font. So fill color, outline color. So colors, those are covered. Outline, text, and size. Let's actually just borrow this whole thing. It's not a float, it's actually an integer, but we'll sneak it in. And I did end up having to assign these closure values manually as instead of counting offsets. Can't really count an offset to such a member when it's really inside of a pointer. It can't be accessed directly. So let's get value 5 to return an integer for size. That'll be and did I already write it in my notes? Get character size. Okay, set member. And likewise, that'll be width and height can go. Outline, and that would be these all need to say text, but I think because we have two text positions, if you're just setting X or Y, it has to get the position for one half of it. So if you're setting X, get Y, but use the new value for X. And this would be dot set character size and val is the number. Set character size is a SFML function that should be able to cast this, let's see, floats. Yeah, it's fine. That should work just fine. All right. Those look good. So also caption needs to go a couple of places here. For example, UI frame, it's a caption. It's a caption. I'm not going to search and replace. I want to make sure that I find them all. Pi objects. So get color. Create the color, text fill color, text outline color, return the color. Okay. Set color member. So this is how it sets, it gets RGBA off of a color object type. RGBA, data text, already got those. Okay. UI caption, that all looks completely switched over. Pi UI caption repr. So what does this actually say? We actually need a completely different repr for this. So it should say caption, drop in the UI prefix in Python. Text X, text Y. X equal, Y equal. With height equal. Outline, fill color. Okay, so these. Fill color, outline color. There are no children on this. X, Y. Outline, fill color, outline color. Let's actually put right here I want to put single quotes around it. It might not be exactly right, but whatever. And the text would be get string, note say, get string, set string. Oh, it's a getter setter I still need to flesh out. So fill that in, caption repr. Caption init. I have not worked on any of the inits yet. Because it would be really nice if it was XY text and I don't remember if you're supposed to do a buffer or something, but let me just double check that real quick. Because I know it'll take a string. We have S. Converts a Unicode object to a C pointer to a character string. A pointer to an existing string is stored in the character pointer variable whose address you pass. Null terminated C string. Unicode objects are converted to C strings using UTF-8. Wait, I think I've got the parsing side. Optional string. Maybe. Let's see if it yells at me. All right, let's see what else. Let's continue to... I chose those default colors just to prove that it was able to set the values, but I'll actually add to the backlog now. Here's the big backlog, and it'll be because ideally when writing stuff you'd probably want to initialize your really basic stuff like your captions and your static images with just a single line of what they're supposed to have for position and text and just leave it there. All right, let's see. PyUI caption objects. It's a caption. UI frame becomes size of UI caption. When we are done, reset the data shared pointer. End of Python objects. We got a repr. We need docstring, so I'll add that to the backlog. PyType objects, py caption object equal caption object tpalloc. That's how we get the thing. Make shared UI caption in the data. All right, I think that is a fully fledged Python class. So let me see if I'm in the right spot. Okay. Also, I know this is a huge mess. What did I put inits in the backlog? I did. So what I also want to put is split UI.h into 5 classes. So UI.h seems good to have one header for everything else to include UI. But implementation wise, we need a single implementation for frame, caption, sprite, grid when I get to it, and collection. Collection also has a second Python class, the iterator, but that can live with that one. So that'll be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 major objects that people need to interact with to use the game engine, and 1 header file for the rest of the engine to create renderable objects. Not mad at that. Okay, so where does this need to go in this miserable file? Oh yeah, I never talked about how I got this to work, because there was, as far as I can tell, nothing wrong with my code in the UI.cpp file that was causing all those errors last night. I literally could not figure out what the problem was, so I have moved the function, tried to move it inside of the MCR PyDef namespace. I thought that might have something to do with it, even though using namespace MCR FPyDef should have, in my mind, covered any issues with namespace. Did not work. Could not figure out how to make it work as a separate function. Copy and paste the code in here as a macro. It's like I'm basically using it to inline the behaviors of creating a new object. So that's working fine, and I think it's absolutely ugly and horrifying, but I am going to leave it there. So this is used by, it'll be used by UI frame, which could have children of any type, and it'll be used by the collections, which are at the bottom. So I think the caption class and the sprite class need to go after color, which they can use. By color type, done. Here's UI frame. So it needs to go in here, I think. Okay, so here's, goodness gracious, what buttons am I pressing? Okay, so in it goes. Let the compiler figure out what's wrong. Let me see if anybody's actually Jeez, that's a lot of noise. Yep, missed a box. Check. Py caption get text never defined. So that's one way to get it wrong. I have set text in the setter getter, but it's not yeah, it's not defined as an actual function, so gonna need to do that. Now let's see, got that one. I'm gonna need to go make that. Get text set text. Yep, never did it. Now let's do line 444. That's not the line. Above this it should say, yep. Expected primary expression. Just a typo with the commas. So what's missing now would be in 472, same issue. UI frame object should be UI text object. All right, the big one now is that my getters and setters, line 434, I have these two getter setters not defined. That's a set. And now let's go get a get. I just don't want to have to remember what the signature is. there is no closure on these because there's only one text per caption. UI caption object, get text member, set text member. What I can actually do here is return 0 and return hold on, I need to remember how to do string from string. Const char v. Okay, so I get to make it here. Well, let's put in some test stuff that compiles to make sure that I got all the names and everything right. I did not. Woo! Pi UI caption set text and get text, which is not what I named that. This one. UI text object is wrong. Man, I am not good at this. Can't remember my own keywords. Okay, let's try pi Unicode from string. What line was that? 427. Must have got like the Python 2 docs up. Use it twice. Okay, warning because did it fail? It looks like, yeah, it failed because you can't put that in a stream. SF string. So let me see what get the text string. So let me just cast it. Wait, what line? Up this entire huge trace back. I love how much detail I got. That's so helpful. 457. Yep, right in front of me. Okay, and that is get string, which will be and that's fine. So now we need to add UI caption type to the API. Okay. 232 lines is how much is in this thing, isn't it? Yeah. So let me pull up API. Can't remember what it was called, so let's just mine the header. Oh yeah, wrong file. PyModule add type. Let's put this before. So now I can create captions, but let's go to UI.h, my macro at the top. And actually return so this should make a new caption, allocate it, put it in the object O. The target is the object we wanted to make Python-y. And then we return a regular Python object that points to that same data. That data should have been defined in C++ when the UI scene gets initialized, at least for my test scene. So let's see what I broke. Nothing. Let's try it out. Okay. Always on top and over here. So I can get all the objects in the scene by knowing the name of the scene. 2 collections. So we know collection 0, a frame. Collection 1 is a caption. So we have x50, y250, text equals hello world. Sure is. Outline 0, fill color, whites, outline color, black. Trailing comma in the repr. And it doesn't say the outline thickness either. I think I must have deleted that when I converted it over. Let's try messing with it. So I have that guy. Let me say t.x equals y equals 100. And t.fill color equals. Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm happy with it. That's basically all I wanted to do for that guy. Easy peasy. So let me just get myself a little dopamine by going, let's see. Font, not done. Fill color works. Size? I didn't even check. I didn't even put it in the repr either, so I think those at least are done. But in the backlog, let's add I have never tested the outlines on frames either. I don't remember what I called the field on the rectangle. Outline thickness or something? Whatever. Yeah. I guess we can start poking at sprites. That's probably the next big thing to get back to. Well, let's look at sprites. It might be kind of easy. Okay, parent class, frame, caption, done. Sprite. So what it has is a texture index and a sprite index. And if I'm not mistaken, let's check an API, or the API file really quick. This has a sprite. Does that initialize correctly? I've never used these at all. So let's start with one in let's check the whole thing. I have no idea if it'll work. I didn't expect to get this far. Okay, so to the UI test scene. That'll be 8. And we are going to add in the constructor element 3. That'll be a UI sprite. Now I need to do some stuff to it. Really, let me go way back. By the way, how am I doing on framing? Great, that's I'm really right in there. Okay, so that's good. I want to do that. Let's go way back in time. And go to my 7-day roguelike. Okay, so I got this working by... Oh, I never generated a map, did I? Yeah. Man, this had a lot of good stuff, didn't it? Pirates and such. Field of view. I have these sprites here. I guess I can't even go back far enough. I didn't. Let me look at the log. Field of view, collision, keyboard, sound, test animation, pan zoom. Jank mode. Grid. February of this year, huh? I'm looking for a... This is the initial one when I moved it in from a couple of other EngJam codes. Wow, demo class. Let me try this one. Looks very different. I had a UI test scene. It's different. Okay, so this is basically more or less what I wanted. So I have all these. This is the Kenny textures. This is really what I wanted to do. So what we want is to scroll with my mouse wheel and find a good sprites. It's like a slashing animation. That's a gravestone, rail, anvil, fence, wizard. That's 84. So we're going to give this guy a texture index of 84. And that would be something like E3. I don't even remember the definition of this. Texture index and sprite index. So we're going to say texture index equals 0, sprite index equals 84, and could even do something like E3 dot or sprite dot set scale. I think that should work. I don't actually know if it will even render, but let's live dangerously and just take a crack at it. 3. Compile the code, sip your beverage. Dang it. Let's see, no matching function because it's two-dimensional. I almost remembered a thing. By the way, is it factor x, factor y? Doesn't have to be a vector. Still? What did I get wrong? Sprite set scale double. Do I just need to put an F? That's a little weird. I can't figure it out. Float, float. That's a candidate. Did I not write the file? It looks like I wrote the file. What is it saying there? Oh, doing some kind of weird tuple thing. Can't do that. Already thinking in Python. It's too soon. It's not rendering it. So let's look at the implementation for sprite rendering, because that should have rendered in the top left corner. Let me go to UICPP, and that would be UI sprite render, sprite.move offset. What this thing needs is a constructor. So let's go to UI sprites. Float scale. I put scale there. I Probably borrowed it from something. So it's drawing the sprite, but it's never loading the sprite. So let's do a void updates function, and what that will do is set the sprite to be what it's supposed to be, which I'm going to go hunt for. That would be in might be in grid or something. Let's see what this does. Grid set a sprite at a certain point. I think I need index sprite. Texture index, sprite index, stores them, and this returns the drawable sprites. So we're going to use that, set texture, set scale. That's what I need to do. And set position. Set texture right, text.sprite coordinates, sprite index. So that's an index sprite. I'm going to get a texture. I'm going to apply that texture to the sprite. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm going to do. The thing is that index sprite builds a sprite every time you draw it. Let's check out the header. UI sprite carries it along with it. I don't know if that's better. We're only going to do this stuff during update mostly. So do an update, and then render should do its whole thing. We're still going to need index texture. So we get a void UI sprite update. Put this stuff in. Texture index, sprite index are values there. So I'm also going to jump into the API and say, I think part of starting up the course I have with the create texture option, the existing UI function, might kind of be good. Where's texture defined? Sprite.set texture. Texture. Okay, so that's like a default guy that gets started up. I'm gonna keep this in mind. How does that get loaded? So I need a test texture. Game textures, pushback, index texture, that stuff. I don't think that was ever carried over. All right, notes, they're coming in. They're going to come in handy. And UI sprite to test it. We're going to need a tiny dungeon file. We're going to need to make an index texture. We're going to need to do this stuff. The whole, well, let's see. Yep. make a texture, load it from file. Make it not smooth. We want that nice pixel art look. And then for the grid size and stuff, let's just go have a look at it. This is 192 by 176. I think it's a 12 by 11 of 16 pixels. So this would be grid size 16, grid width 12, grid height 11. Let's make sure I got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. I think that'll work for setup. This guy cannot go out of scope. How does that work? T load from file. Let's add it to... How does that work? Does that go out of scope when the API is done loading? I think it's because it's static, isn't it? No. Got no idea how that worked. Oh well, let's go to UI test scene. Load the test textures. Oh, where's the... We need some pushback action, don't we? This one's got to be... So once we get that texture added to the games list, we should be able to use it now. This would be index 0, assuming nothing else loading stuff. 84 is the wizard. It knows that from 12, 11 is the max number of sprites there are. It's going to just go across 0 to 11, 12 to 23, what have you. And that'll eventually give us number 84. We're not going to set the scale. We're going to say E3 what button am I pressing? Okay. Scale 4.0, update, which will compute that stuff. Push it to the back. Let's go to UI implementation. Here's what update does. Set scale, set position. Do I have an X and Y on this? I'm about to. And let's go to the test scene. Give this guy... Like, I think the idea here was I was going to rely on the sprite to hold the position, but you know, we'll circle back to that. Backlog. I think the X and Y is a anti-pattern at this point, but let's see what it broke. By the way, index texture's got to come out. I don't think that's how I want to do that. I like the pattern I have for color better now. Index text. Not declared. Resources on line 66 of UI test scene. Great. Okay, it was that one I was just on. Oh, look. How did I get that wrong? It's weird. Is it a global variable? Is that what's happening? Is it a static variable in the API? Let's check that before we bother running this. Did I not save the UI file? Auto index text. Yeah, I just copied the. I thought I was copying the part that was important, and I left out the part that was also important. Yep, it's that dumb, isn't it? Okay. Segfault. Textures. It's trying to draw a texture which is not been loaded anymore. So let's go to UI test scene. And pull up the UI test scene header. Nope. private member should be something we can share a pointer to. Whoops, my bad. So I'm just going to have that texture on the heap as part of the UI test scene, and then the index texture should still be able to reference it via pointer when it goes to draw. Nope, I did something else wrong. What am I doing wrong here? Okay, so really just as little as this could divide it in half for me. Is it part of the render or is it part of the data? Because if it's not on that list, it's not going to get rendered. It's not going to be a problem. Seg fault. Load from file not working. That line is still in the API, so bin Linux assets. There it is. Just to be clear, it's always something. It's always something. Had too many minutes on the stream not in seg fault hell, so. There it is. Can we load the texture? That's about the smallest split I can put on it. Can be allocated. Great. Setting members, is it a bad pointer thing or is it a seg fault in the update function? What does update do? Going to UI sprite update. That may have been, let's put this through resources now. So this is pointery. Can I get that from the texture index? I don't know. Let's make sure update comes after make sure update comes after, yeah, resources pushback. So for that, let me just say verify that. We'll load it. Sprite set texture rect text.sprite coordinates for that index. Okay. When texture is loaded, we should have that texture. So I didn't change anything. I can't just call update now. Let's see if it's on render problem or on update problem. That's something I forgot if I already got the answer to. Okay, it's a render problem. So if we add this guy to the list, it will try to get rendered. We'll call render on that. And UI sprite render, sprite.move by the offset, draw the sprite and move it back. We've got a sprite. Now let's make it fancy. Oh man, what did I fix? I don't remember fixing it. I was just checking it out. Okay, so instead of UI elements, should be E1AA. Let's test the recursive power of what I'm up to. Okay, so wow, it's more or less working. Now the question is, where do I go from here? UI sprites. Get a fireworks emoji. Also, let me do a what's different here? Adding the caption type. A lot of stuff. I didn't even commit the macro. Before I get too much farther in it, let's say, I know it's a mess, but what does the log say? Yikes, come on. Last commit was lunchtime. So let me say okay, so that's a good start there. Next would be let's see, UI sprite. Like, okay, here's an issue I'm having. Let's go to the drawing board. I would like to draw a bit at this point. Dang it. Okay. All right, and where's drawing? We're doodling. Okay. So I have started making this engine without a clear idea of what it was supposed to be, how it was supposed to work. And I feel like it's coming into focus for me. So let's go with front and center. I'll go up top. I'll do like a tree thing. Okay, so there's McRogueface, and we're going to go through my primordial elements, which will be frame, caption, sprite, and grid. Grid has a kind of special additional item on it, which I'll call entity. So what are all these guys? Frame is any box or button. Basically, one of the big changes to the structure I added this jam is getting rid of the concept of a button, and I'm going to add events directly to frames, which is also going to help me with drag and drop, scroll wheeling, going into an element of the UI, and other stuff like that. Caption and sprite, any kind of static text that you want to appear on the screen. That would basically be those. And grid is a 2D game board any size, whether it's like a chessboard or a grid of those like match 3 gem games or little RPG characters on a world map, or zoomed in the walls and people in a dungeon. The grid is just 2D, and it can be zoomed and panned in one demo I made, and that's the primary game space. I think that needs to be a UI element too, but haven't done that yet. An entity is anything that interacts with the systems, and it exists at a position on a single grid. So I think I can make them exist abstractly, especially once I get them kind of more integrated with Python. But the idea there would be, if you have a character that's going to, an NPC that wants to maybe say a greeting when someone comes to their door, or a monster that wants to hunt any player it sees, all that behavior would be associated with the entity object and whatever Python scripts or whatever back that. But these guys also need some helper objects that come from SFML, and those are color. It's really just like a for tuple. Fonts, and texture. So for these are already defined by SFML, and I don't want to redefine them. There's even a SFML integration of Python. I don't think I'm making this in a compatible way to that, but that would be interesting to address later on. The idea here is that a SF color is, your RGBA. A font is a file that has to stay open, and so is a texture. So I would like people to be able to create those from just opening their files with a function in Python. And what I should also say is that grids and entities rely on textures a lot too, because grids can have a single texture file for the ground. And every entity that's on it can have its own texture file for their own animations. My envision use case was that is, if you have a single text sheet, sprite sheet with all of your ground textures, then the grid can use that, and another sprite sheet or several that do the entities. Like, another thing is, if you have like 2x2 square sized entities that can only move in 2x2 blocks, or at least take up 2 wide of a hallway or whatever, you couldn't mix their sprite sheets, but you could load 2 separate sprite sheets for the entities to do that. So this is basically all the objects that I want to define. Some other questions like, what about scroll boxes, or what about keyboard events? And I want to do that stuff. Like, what about drag and drop items? So I think if you have, like, let's say you had like this idea for a scroll bar. So, and then we have like some content here, like a picture of a dude. And you want to be able to scroll down using this. Well, what I see this as is, we've got the UI frame. Its children are that would like the whole box. Then we have frame body, frame scroll bar, and the body has stuff on it like text, sprite, maybe more frames for confirm buttons or whatever. And then this scroll bar has a frame up button, frame progress, and a frame, and that would be down. So I haven't thought of like templates. Once I get kind of a better idea of how I'm gonna make some templates, I would like to be able to express a structure like this in YAML or JSON, or maybe like drag and drop type thing, so that you can sort of stamp out this whole recursive tree of things to make your different widgets, and but without adding any more C++ functionality, add a kind of Python library, because this thing will go recursively as far down as you want it to, I guess. So no reason why we couldn't have these structures be stamped out and repeated to make any kind of complex widgets or dialogues you need. Same thing with like you could add sprites that are like represent an item, and when you drag it, they can have like an event that says they were released at this different coordinate. You match that up with some other frame to determine they were dragged into a different inventory slot, like Minecraft's inventory is just a grid of boxes, or drag it to an NPC's dialogue to give them that item. That's the kind of events that I want to implement, which really would have been the stuff that I wanted to get to, but I gotta build this stuff first so that I learn what I'm doing, understand what I'm doing. So with that in mind, let's go to my notes. So UI Sprite needs a Python implementation, and that's like going to be 230, 250 lines. And grid needs converted to UI drawable subclass. That's going to be a little bit of code archaeology. What do I look like right now? Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of like code archaeology to figure out how my own grid class works, because I kind of forget, and turn it into one of these drawable widgets so that it can go into the same vector with the rest of the stuff that's getting drawn, and all my UI will be exactly one kind of thing that's getting render called on it. Something I'm going to put in the big backlog, can't possibly be done during the jam, would be let me give an example there. So let's run this thing. So we have this test sprite in a box there, and let me say like let's get the objects. Can I get this a little bit out of my way? Yeah. Let's go back to typing mode for a little bit. That'll be f equals mcrpy dot scene UI. Still not loving that name, but let's get this frame here, and now let's say f2 equals f dot children 0. So we have f2. What if I say f2.x equals, what is it, x200? So let's say he's going to be 220, and draw another frame. The child is being drawn over the edge of this frame, which, by the way, is super handy if you wanted to have a kind of boxy box shape, or even better, let me say f3 equals f2 children 0. So there's that frame, and now by moving this frame we can basically move this sprite around. So let me say like f3.x equals 150, and that puts it there. But now let me also say that f3.fillColor equals nothing. So now we're drawing this sprite on the background, and let's do f2 the same thing. So when we draw that, now this sprite can kind of pop over the side, which is like a feature, right? You can use that to give a kind of, the sprite is the outline of your window for like a character dialogue or something. So that's really cool. But in the case of like a scroll box, what I would really like to be able to do is draw my scroll box items. Let me no longer on top this guy. So if we're drawing this scroll box, what I would like to do is say like the text and the sprites, they will get absolute positioning relative to this pane, the body pane. But the body pane gets drawn basically like if you are like halfway down the text, the body pane gets drawn relative to the starts way up here. And that would just draw everything over top of the whole window. But if we could clip, then you would be able to not worry about where on the scroll bar you are. You would just change the relative position of body from scroll bars, percentage. You can recalculate that when you click a point on the scroll bar, or when you click and drag the progress box. By the way, you can also change the height of the progress box based on how long this body frame is. So I think it would be really flexible to be able to not, let's see if I overdid it. Drawing is really slow with the undo. It's like I just asked it to compute God knows what. It's freaking out actually. Okay, so there we go. Just had to think about it really, really hard. So did I put that on there? Clip rendering, yeah, that's something I really want to get around to. I've got 3 hours left. I do need to take a break to not be a complete smooth brain by the end of the night. Those are things I could do. What I'm also going to do is take my I'm gonna get an upload ready. I don't think anyone else has submitted 3 hours to the deadline. I'm gonna submit and maybe revise it before time is up. So boop, break time, and see you whenever I get back. Do 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 do. I think I'm ready to just keep going. See if anyone's said anything. Extra set of parens. Someone nailed it. And YouTube. No one watches on YouTube. Just using them as a free video recorder. Alright, under 3 hours to go. I'm going to submit now. I know I can modify it. And the cool thing about that is how to submit McRogueface. So I'm going to take bin Linux. And I'm going to zip it. And us Linux people can get away with targz. And I'll call it CRF EngJam 2023 dash Linux. That's it. So EngJam 45 megs. That's about the size of the whole thing. So and this will be, I should probably at least do it on stream. I'll call it edition. And let me run it and screenshot it. McRogueface E. Brutal. I'm going to just call other. No payments, please. I'm going to upload. Details. .45 megs is pretty standard because it's including the entire Python interpreter, standard library, all that stuff. Just for Linux. I would do more if I thought anyone else was going to if I thought anyone else was going to submit anything, I will save and view. And just let it happen. That's fine. So there's my submission. Now I'll go to EngJam front page and submit. And we're going to pick what does that mean? The options are totally borked on this. Let me do that. Submissions. How do we get back to it? It's a little annoying. It still looks a little weird. What else do I got to do? Hell of a time to set this up, right? I probably should have checked it as soon. Like, what I am not getting about it is that it seems like yeah, I don't understand what the fields are for that. And MCRF. Pull up the old GitHub link and hit submit. Please check this box if you want to proceed. That's a little weird. Okay, back to those. I didn't expect to be doing this during the jam. Just make it not, I mean that, wait, that seemed correct. They seem like not connected, but see all submissions. I'm in there. What does it say? EngJam got a submission. Awesome. Well, that makes one. All right, so I mean, these checkboxes look correct, but the requirement rules were pretty weird. Oh well, that's something I can update now if I get anything else in under the wire. I would hate to miss the deadline for my own my own game jam. All right. What else can I get in trouble with? Let's go to my notes. So we could work on the grid, could work on the sprites. What I thought of during my break was, what are they? By color to, I'll call them that in C++, but they'll just be color, font, and texture to the users. Something else I didn't even put on my little map. I keep this map up to date. This guy. We got events. Oh, that's what I accidentally extra undid, was the line under events. And one looks really bad. Hang in there, drawing. Hang in there. You can do it. Okay. Oh, I need to hit full screen. Take your time. Okay. And my drawing method is so jank, so that's why. And finally, animations. That's the other thing I need to add. So animations, which were already working in the crappy earlier demos, allowed me to pick any field on either position, size, scale, and set a duration and in real time, and it would interpolate the values between that. And adding more lerp values, like lerp functions, and adding more options like infinite repeating. That's on the to-do list for animations. But I think that's kind of it. That's pretty much all I want to do with the engine. So that puts me at maybe like, what, a third done at this point? It's a pretty big overhaul, so I feel like it kind of was 0% done as a concept demo prior to this. I'll leave it at that. That's enough drawing time, I think. Now, oh, that's a much better name. Okay, no more drawing. Let's try to tackle these. So I'll go to UI.h and let's pluck out my color implementation. I'm going to make a scratch pad. I'm going to close all my documents after the jam is over. 12 untitled is way too many. So what all do we need for this? Get member. Probably need getter setters, so makes some sense. Set member. Get set and a type file. Okay, so pretty dang simple. Also a lot of really ugly. Let me add that to the big backlog. Big backlog. It's like there's a lot of useless comments in every single file. I'll probably be able to get like minus 200 lines. Okay, so what actually does a font do in this engine? Like really, like we A, load it from a file, and B, reference it to captions. Likewise for texture. Anything else that these could use for? Can't really think of any, so it's gonna need file name. Couple of ways to do this. Okay. Python's garbage collector. If, for example, we had PyObjects member fonts, I don't know, Py fonts. Like this could be interesting to actually manage the memory for these things on the Python side, because if the user is going to open a font and pass around references to it, I don't really need to do the whole shared pointer thing. We can get the, well, let me think about that. Every time you assign to the Python one, it could update its own Python object that points to the Python font objects. But at the same time that it does that, it can make its own C++ text objects point directly to the pointer inside of the Python font object. So the Py UI caption is holding the reference for the Py font, and it will never be garbage collected. Meanwhile, the user can pass that Python object around, create as many captions they want using the same font, and as long as there's a single existing one, the font will still be loaded. And then teardown goes perfectly backwards because it does that same thing. If you assign a different font to a caption, then it can't be a null reference because the new font would be overwritten and the old font can go out of scope. All right. I think file name is pretty much the only thing. This does get away from I don't know that I even had a global font. Texture, kind of the same exact thing. I kind of like the same idea there. So yeah, so texts are only on captions. PyUI, what? The struct. And if it's just in a variable in the script, that would stay loaded, which I think is a perfectly good way to do it. So, is there anything else wrong with color? I think it wasn't, it's not loading colors properly. So, it's really, yeah. Not able to get the data out of it, but I wasn't able to extract the data when assigning a fill color directly to a color object. Is this something, I'm doing something wrong with it? So I think really what I'll be doing with this is during, I need to do this during alloc. As we get new, we can make room in the object for it. But init, which color doesn't even use, Color should have an init. It needs to go in the backlog. Is that why my thing's not working? Hold on, I need to reinterpret a bug real quick. Okay, so let's say, stay on top. So let's say orange equals, what was it? 128, 255, 0. Orange dot red, orange dot blue, orange dot green, orange dot alpha. It's a default constructed color. So now if I say O dot R equals 128, orange dot R, sorry, orange dot B equals 255, no, orange dot G equals 255, orange dot B equals 0. Orange still doesn't have a repr, but let me say orange dot R. Okay, that's set. So now if I say mcr of py scene UI test 0, here's that frame. Can I say f dot fill color equals orange? I get limey. So let me say, yeah, orange dot R equals 255, orange dot green equals 128, dot fill color equals orange, and I have to press Control D to get one more frame of the game. So can I say f dot children 0 dot children 0 dot fill color equals orange? Yes, I can. Okay, so the bug is not what I thought it was. Holy cow. Let's my backlog is such a mess. Let me say oh, we're done. Thank you. Figured it out. Needs it init for okay. That's my code is working better than I thought it was. This print statement is because I was trying to debug that, but I never got around to it. Okay, so I think I like this theory. May the seg faults be ever in my favor. God, I just look and sound tired, don't I? I'm not going to push it to the deadline. Try to at least make it to 10. Like, oh man, I need my sleep. So what we really need from this is going to be TP init, TP alloc, TP dealloc. Those are the functions that, well, what the heck is the difference between TP alloc and TP new? Chat GPT. Okay, so let's reset this guy, and let me find my good system prompt. And now the query will be what is that thing actually called? Gotta use the right terminology or we'll make shit up. PyType object. Throw TP and init in the mix too. Yeah, just let's start with that. See if it'll run smoothly. See if it's running at all. I don't even know. Okay. Huh, that really took a minute to cook. Okay, let's see. New creates an instance and allocates the memory. Sets them to defaults. Okie dokie. So init already has a working object in it. So I think what I want to say to that is that TP new is what we'll use. So to my notes, texture will get a, not TP alloc, we'll use the default one there. TP new and TP dealloc. And what these methods will do is texture. Let's do font first. Real similar. These are going to have to copy off of each other a lot. Okay, so TP init. This is the user facing TP new. Because if we just have a regular member on the struct, it's not that hard to set up the memory. And then this should be like all right, so I guess what that means is the class gets simpler and simpler. And we don't, like, let's not have any setters or getters at all. Let's make these real miniature. So MC rfpy.fonts. I'm going to have to get that object. So that should be, it's a weird way to do it. I'm going to put something else in the backlog, which will be it's 4 bytes. We don't need to have, like, the pointer to it is probably 4 bytes. What a waste of memory and redirection. So this will be font. TP new by type object pi font object equals pi font object of that type, TP alloc if self. Do I need a default there? No, we're just going to override it. So init proc pyfont init. We don't need any of these. I don't even use git set. Dalloc, nothing. Well, let me see if there's like an unload function for that. So SF fonts. Let's do one of these, let's say. And in new, we can say, so in Dalloc, we can say if loaded. Do I want to save the file name it got it from? I guess we have something to display. Let's see, load, get texture, nothing about unloading. Load from stream, get glyph. I'm gonna just take this out. This is like the default one, so. And let's find the pie color knit. Oh, there wasn't one. Kind of not really well fleshed out init. None of my inits are super well fleshed out in this API. So what that would be, this is like a cast, isn't it? Wonder if I could make this into a lambda too. It's about to be pretty short. Let's see. Nah, let's keep it one separate thing. Pi, fonts, pi, font, keywords, and this would be I think it's that simple. Let's see all the horrible ways this can segfault. Let me pull up my OBS. Let me check the old let's try to compile that. Pretty isolated, really not a lot going on. So let's put this, oh, actually, let me do that, because I'm going to need to need to chop these guys into files soon. Wow, fits on one screen. What's wrong with it? All right, let's take this font type and move it to, or load it in the API. Wrong one, wrong one. Let's try to instantiate this weird thing. It's there. Help says I need to add doc strings to all these things. It's something I don't even know how to do. So, but I love using the in IDE or in REPL help. So definitely for the big lists. Okay, so if I were to say f equal mtrqi.fonts, what's the font name? I don't know the font that we use. Do I have to load one in the UI test scene? Game get fonts. So I think Game Engine loads it. Return fonts. Resources font load from file. JetBrains Mono. Oh, of course it's segfaults. Okay, that's good. That's pretty helpful. Yeah, I'm done. Did I make it to 10 o'clock? Yeah, I did. Basically, I did. Okay. So that's enough for now. I will not revise my submission with this seg fault in it. Didn't really add any stuff of consequence. I feel like we got plenty of notes of what to do next. So let me, if my doodler is still running, yeah, my doodler's still running. Let me just look at the log. Last hour and 20 minutes has been almost no code changes, but should I merge this to master? I'm gonna not. I'll leave it until I finish my little checklists of stuff here. So, you know, I'm not going to doodle now. I would like to do more kind of like review of what I got done over the last 2 weeks and 3 weekends, but I will save it for tomorrow probably. Maybe there will be another EngJam submission, but I'm wagering there will not. So it was fun. It was really tiring. I kind of wore myself out just trying to keep the ball rolling here. But I didn't hate it. I will try to throw it again next year. I will try to make rogue face submissions into 7-Day Roguelike and Linux Game Jam next year. And I'm glad it's progressing. But that is literally all I can think of for this jam, and thanks for tuning in. Or not.